Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Welcome to Politics Done Right. From the studios of KPFT 90.1 FM Houston, your community radio station, we have a great program for you today. Well, we are going to be speaking today with Reese and Randall Kallinen. I mean, they've been working on the bias within the criminal justice system. And Randall, for one, has a story that everyone needs to hear about our system. We'll talk about that. He's a civil rights attorney. Reese is a former president of the Houston Peace and Justice Center and a former peace officer in the county. But, we're also going to talk about Dr. Fauci and the discussion that he had with one and only Rand Paul, as he destroyed Rand Paul as being a profiteering politician that cares nothing about the people, but just about making a few bucks from his website. We're also going to talk about Kyrsten Sinema's betrayal of the American people, not only of her state, but of the American people, by ensuring the possibility that we'll have another coup, because the voting rights of many American citizens would have been denied. Of course, we also have Morning Joe talking about the grifters that exist within the Republican Party. Ron Insana points out that the economy is much better than many would want you to believe. And I have a question about the inability of the Democratic Party when they are in full power to exercise their power, unlike Republicans who always exercise their power, including after not winning a general election for years, still having a supermajority in the Supreme Court. You can get any one of my books as a gift for becoming a member of KPFT. Go to kpft.org, click that donate button, select Politics Done Right as the show you're supporting, and go into the gift area and select As I See It, Class Warfare, the only resort to right-wing doom. Or you can also get It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors. Or go to How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It. If you get one book, it gives you one particular membership price. 2 books, you get a discount. And 3 books, you get an even better discount. So please consider becoming a member of KPFT. And in the process, you get the gifts of the books. You can get Politics Done Right Mondays through Fridays on Facebook Live at facebook.com/Politics Done Right. On YouTube Live at politicsdoneright.com/YouTube. Please do not forget to follow me on Twitter for updates. My handle is at Egberto Willies, at EGBERTOWILLIES. Before you get started, please remember to keep your community radio station in your minds, KPFT in your minds. Talk about it. Tell your friends about it. Tell them you know about this station in town, 90.1 FM Houston, that needs your support, that is there to provide that nourishment that we need. 713-526-5738. KPFT.org. Visit us online. Contribute online. KPFT 90.1 FM. You can visit us at kpft.org. Folks, you know exactly what I'm going to say now. We are going to do what? Let's get busy.
A planner who believes he is the science leads to an arrogance that justifies, in his mind, using government resources to smear and to destroy the reputations of other scientists who disagree with him. In an email exchange with Dr. Collins, you conspire, and I quote here directly from the email, to create a quick and devastating published takedown of 3 prominent epidemiologists from Harvard, Oxford, and Stanford. Apparently, there's a lot of fringe epidemiologists at Harvard, Oxford, and Stanford. And you quote in the email that they, or from Dr. Collins, and you agree that they are fringe. And immediately there's this takedown effort. A published takedown, though, doesn't exactly conjure up the image of a dispassionate scientist. Instead of engaging them on the merits, you and Dr. Collins sought to smear them as fringe and take them down. And not in journals, in lay press. This is not only antithetical to the scientific method, it's the epitome of cheap politics, and it's reprehensible, Dr. Fauci. Do you really think it's appropriate to use your $420,000 salary to attack scientists that disagree with you?
The email you're referring to was an email of Dr. Collins to me. If you look at the email
that you responded to and hurried up and said, I can do it. We got something in Wired magazine.
No. I think in usual fashion, Senator, you are distorting everything about me.
Did you talk with any of those scientists privately?
You keep distorting the truth. It is stunning how you do that. Did you talk
to any of the scientists privately?
Yes.
Who wrote the opinion? You did. Well, what were they telling you privately?
Well, let me explain. You're going back to that original discussion when I brought together a group of people to look at every possibility with an open mind. So not only are you distorting it, you are completely turning it around.
You've advocated that your infallible opinion be dictated by law.
Right. So again, Madam Chair, I would like just a couple of minutes because this happens all the time. You personally attack me, and with absolutely not a shred of evidence of anything you say. So I would like to make something clear to the committee. He's doing this for political reasons. What you need to do is, he said in front of this committee.
You think your takedown of three prominent epidemiologists was not political?
You don't want me to finish because you know what I'm going to say.
That was the question. Were you political in taking down these three prominent epidemiologists?
Senator Paul, if you would please, I'm going to allow this, Dr. Fauci to respond.
The last time we had a committee, or the time before, he was accusing me of being responsible for the death of 4 to 5 million people, which is really irresponsible. And I say, why is he doing that? There are two reasons why that's really bad. The first is it distracts from what we're all trying to do here today, is get our arms around the epidemic and the pandemic that we're dealing with, not something imaginary. Number two, what happens when he gets out and accuses me of things that are completely untrue is that all of a sudden that kindles the crazies out there, and I have threats upon my life, harassment of my family and my children with obscene phone calls because people are lying about me. Now, I guess you could say, well, that's the way it goes. I can take the hit. Well, it makes a difference because, as some of you may know, just about 3 or 4 weeks ago, on December 21st, a person was arrested who was on their way from Sacramento to Washington, D.C. at a speed stop in Iowa. And the police asked him where he was going, and he was going to Washington, D.C. to kill Dr. Fauci. And they found in his car an AR-15 and multiple magazines of ammunition, because he thinks that maybe I'm killing people. So I ask myself, why would Senator want to do this? So go to Rand Paul website and you see fire Dr. Fauci with a little box that says, contribute here. You can do $5, $10, $20, $100. So you are making a catastrophic epidemic for your political gain.
Well, I want you guys now to listen to Kyrsten Sinema. What was her argument? And you can see somebody, you would think she's a space cadet, but she knows what she's doing. Take a look at her donor list. In the blog that I am writing for this, I actually have a link to her, the mass who actually is supporting this woman. And that is who's holding our democracy hostage. Check this out.
And I strongly support and will continue to vote for legislative responses to address these state laws, including the Freedom to Vote Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act that the Senate is currently considering. I support these bills because they strengthen Americans' access to the ballot box, and they better ensure that Americans' votes are counted fairly. It is through elections that Americans make their voices heard, select their representatives, and guide the future of our countries and our community. These bills help treat the symptoms of the disease, but they do not fully address the disease itself. And while I continue to support these bills, I will not support separate actions that worsen the underlying disease of division infecting our country. The debate over the Senate's 60-vote threshold shines a light on our broader challenges. There's no need for me to restate my longstanding support for the 60-vote threshold to pass legislation. There's no need for me to restate its role protecting our country from wild reversals in federal policy. It is a view I've held during my years serving in both the U.S. House and the Senate, and it is the view I continue to hold. It is the belief that I have shared many times in public settings and in private settings. Senators of both parties have offered ideas, including some that would earn my support, to make this body more productive, more deliberative, more responsive to Americans' needs, and a place of genuine debate about our country's pressing issues. And while this week's harried discussions about Senate rules are but a poor substitute for what I believe could have and should have been a thoughtful public debate at any time over the past year, such a discussion is still a worthy goal. But a discussion of rules falls short of what is required. American politics are cyclical, and the granting of power in Washington, D.C. is exchanged regularly by the voters from one party to another. This shift of power back and forth means the Senate 60s vote threshold has proved maddening to members of both political parties in recent years, viewed either as a weapon of obstruction or a safety net to save the country from radical policies, depending on whether you serve in the majority or the minority. But what is the legislative filibuster other than a tool that requires new federal policy to be broadly supported by senators representing a broader cross-section of Americans? A guardrail, inevitably viewed as an obstacle by whoever holds the Senate majority, but which in reality ensures that millions of Americans represented by the minority party have a voice in the process. Demands to eliminate this threshold from whichever party holds the fleeting majority amount to a group of people separated on two sides of a canyon, shouting that solution to their colleagues. And that makes the rift both wider and deeper. Consider this. In recent years, nearly every party line response to the problems we face in this body, every partisan action taken to protect a cherished value, has led us to more division, not less. The impact is clear for all to see. The steady escalation of tit for tat, in which each new majority weakens the guardrails of the Senate and excludes input from the other party, furthering resentment and anger amongst this body and our constituents at home. Democrats' increased use of requiring cloture for judicial nominees under President George W. Bush led to similar tactics by Republicans under President Barack Obama. The 2013 decision by Senate Democrats to eliminate the 60-vote threshold for most judicial and presidential nominations led directly to a response in 2017 by Senate Republicans, who eliminated the threshold for Supreme Court nominees. These short-sighted actions by both parties have led to our current American judiciary and Supreme Court.
Let me tell you, she's right about that last one. It has led to a Supreme Court that now can reverse anything progressives want to do because they have a super majority. So we are gonna have head times ahead. But you know, this is the same Sinema that once said the following. What I want to show you is that she would try to play the magnanimous legislator. This magnanimous legislator wants to tell everybody, I am so good that I don't want to do anything that would hurt our people. But this was that legislator a few ago. Check this out.
So what does that mean? Well, in the Senate, we no longer have 60 votes. Some would argue that we never had 60 because one of those was Joseph Lieberman. But that's whatever. And Nelson too, but really Lieberman. So now there's, I think as the president so eloquently said on Wednesday, there's none of this pressure, this false pressure to get to 60. So what that means is that the Democrats can stop kowtowing to Joe Lieberman and instead seek other avenues to move forward with health reform. And so it's likely that the Senate will move forward with a process called reconciliation, which takes only 51 votes. And by the way, is not unusual. You may recall that before the Democrats took the Senate in 2008, that the Republicans controlled the Senate for quite some time. In fact, since around 1994, they never had 60 votes, and they managed to do a lot of really bad things during that time. So the reconciliation process is still quite available, and we will use it for good rather than for evil.
So it's amazing what happens after you're bought. It's amazing what happens when you no longer work for the people, but you work for the plutocracy. It is amazing what happens so soon after you've joined the Senate. So let's be clear here. While she may want to be magnanimous about it, that has very, very little to do with it. Recently, Joe Scarborough did a piece that I think everybody needs to listen to. It is pretty much showing that what Republican politicians are doing right now is really taking advantage of their own. And until we can get or present this information to those folks to let them see you're nothing but pieces of dollars for these guys. Check this out, and then we'll go ahead and take it on the other side.
That includes your past and current investments. There's an air of appearance that maybe some shenanigans are going on. You know, I don't think I assume that that's
Senator,
not the case.
What are you talking about?
Not the case.
My financial disclosures are public knowledge and have been so. You are getting amazingly wrong information.
So I cannot find them. Our office cannot find them. Where would they be if they're public knowledge? Where?
It is totally accessible to you if you want it.
For the public. Is it accessible to the public?
Okay. To the public.
Great. We look forward to reviewing it.
You are totally incorrect.
Well, we look forward to reviewing it.
What a moron. Jesus Christ.
Oh, my.
He should fire his staff, right? Because if they can't find Fauci's disclosure forms on the web,
they can.
Those people should be. Wow, I'm just taking him at his word. Let's fire those people who can't operate the World Wide Web.
They don't want to find them. What was heard on a hot mic during a Senate hearing yesterday was Fauci saying what he really thought about a Republican Senator Roger Marshall of Kansas, also in that hearing, in what has become a common occurrence. Republican Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky grilled Dr. Fauci on his handling of the pandemic at one point, accusing him of stifling other medical opinions.
Central planning, whether it be of the economy or of science, is risky because of the fallibility of the planner. Planner who believes he is the science leads to an arrogance that justifies, in his mind, using government resources to smear and to destroy the reputations of other scientists.
Senator, you are distorting everything about me. The purpose of the committee was to try and get things out, how we can help to get the American public. And you keep coming back to personal attacks on me that have absolutely no relevance to reality. What happens when he gets out and accuses me of things that are completely untrue is that all of a sudden that kindles the crazies out there, and I have threats upon my life. On December 21st, a person was arrested who was on their way from Sacramento to Washington, D.C., and the police asked him where he was going, and he was going to Washington, D.C. to kill Dr. Fauci. And they found in his car an AR-15 and multiple magazines of ammunition because he thinks that maybe I'm killing people. So I ask myself, why would Senator want to do this? So go to Rand Paul website and you see fire Dr. Fauci with a little box that says contribute here. You can do $5, $10, $20, $100. So you are making a catastrophic epidemic for your political gain.
Senator Paul was fundraising off of it, sending out this email urging supporters to, quote, fire Fauci by donating today. And, this isn't funny. I mean, this is sick. I don't think Dr. Fauci thought it was funny. I think what Rand Paul is doing is downright sick.
Well, they're all grifters. I mean,
they're grifters. They're sick.
They're all grifters.
And Joe, it's hard not to get extremely upset to see this happening.
Yeah.
In a hearing at the Capitol, where we are trying to run a country and keep people safe and have the best scientists be given a platform to help Americans be safe. And this idiot is raising money off of defaming him. We're trying to get through a pandemic, and you have these idiots, these blowhards, who make it some sort of conspiracy theory party for themselves. It's hard to watch. And it must be very hard to be Dr. Fauci.
Well, hard to be a lot of people, actually, who have been the targets of these sort of attacks. Dr. Fauci, one of them. But again, it comes down, at the end of the day, people just being grifters. And we're getting more and more evidence of that because more and more text messages are leaking. And people say one thing on television and they say something else off television on January the 6th. Or as it pertains to this, you look at the fact that people are using this to raise money. They're using this to get votes. They're using this to get eyes, more eyeballs on their primetime cable news shows. But you look at the election, the Stop the Steal. It's $1 million industry. There's a great Washington Post article last week talking about how they've all turned against each other in the Stop the Steal community because, they've only got a limited market share and everybody's tearing in to try to get the money. I talked about Jim and Tammy Faye Baker last week. All of this that we've seen, the age of Trump, it's all at the end of the day, including Donald Trump, who is a moderate Democrat, lived his life as a moderate Democrat, but realized he could grift off the Republican Party for votes and money. It's all a PTL club scheme. Yeah. And it's remarkable that you have the Jim and Tammy Faye Baker show that has been shifted over to American government, and it's been used to grift people. Rand Paul knows better. He certainly, they all know better.
Everybody can understand. It is a PTL club scheme. So says Joe Scarborough. And that is true. They are fighting each other to see who can get the most money out of those Republicans that they're scaring. Who can get the most amount money from those Republicans that they're telling, hey, those other people are out to get you. Give us your money and we will protect you from those other people. It's not at all difficult to see what they're doing here. Unfortunately, when you are in that ball, when you are so scared, you are unable to act. Well, let's hope that your friends, your families that are following this BS, that you can get to them, show them some of these videos, make sure that they understand that they're nothing more than cash cows for these people who are using them, who are scaring them, who are doing all that is necessary to profit from them. I have another video to show you guys. This one is important. And I will need you to share this as well. Here's the deal. You've been hearing about inflation. You've been hearing about the jobs report, making you believe that there's something wrong with it, as it's not as good as it should be, etc., etc., etc. Brothers and sisters, listen to Brother Insana here, and then we'll take it on the other side. Let me get Ron Insana in the house. Go ahead, Ron.
Ron, it's good to have you with us. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Ellie.
Good to be with you.
Thank you. So let me start with inflation, right? We talked about the numbers released today showing it's been actually slowing down over the last few months, down from 9.9% in October to just a half point in December. Is there some good news hidden in these numbers that we should be paying attention to?
Yeah, and I'm not sure how hidden it is, actually, Haley. I mean, some of us actually expected this, that the inflation rate of increase would decelerate because some of the supply chain issues that Secretary Buttigieg mentioned just a few moments ago are beginning to ease. If you go back to Christmas, where everybody thought no goods would be delivered and we just get lumps of coal, instead we had the strongest, holiday shopping season in 17 years. So we're seeing more and more those issues get resolved. And I think as we move through 2022, relative to the cost of goods last year, which was depressed by the pandemic, we'll see more flattening out of those increases. And in my estimation, and I'm not among many who say this, I do think inflation is going to come down pretty hard this year, particularly in the goods sector, where, again, we've seen those big jumps relative to the last couple of years that were affected by the pandemic. And I think we'll see much more normal price activity going forward.
We know that the Fed, right, with the chairman of the Fed telling lawmakers on Tuesday, I believe they're considering raising interest rates to try and get a handle on inflation, to tame inflation. So let me ask you this from a very consumer focused perspective, Ron, what should people be doing with their money right now, right, under the assumption that the Fed may raise interest rates to try to get a check on inflation? Anything different?
Well, there's not much anyone needs to do differently at the moment with a long-term discipline plan. You still put your money away on a monthly basis. You can still dedicate it to stock market investments and the like. If the Fed were to get extremely aggressive, and as some suggested, Goldman Sachs or Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan, if the Fed were to raise rates 4 times or more sometime this year, then at that point, the stock market could run into some serious difficulty. We've already seen it wobble a bit so far this year. But for the moment, not much to do except to adhere to one's discipline, put the money away. And until you really see something that is overtly aggressive by the Fed, you don't have to worry too much. You might want to speed up the purchase of a house if you're in the process of closing, because those rates are likely to go up as well.
That makes sense. If you're thinking about it, maybe do it sooner rather than later, although then you're also contending with what we've seen as a hot housing market, at least in some of the places, DC, New York, et cetera. Ron, really quickly before I let you go, bottom line, do you think, I wonder if you feel like these inflation numbers make the economy look worse than it actually is? And the reason I ask is because, I think for people, you go to the grocery store, your chicken breasts are like more expensive. That hurts, right? You feel that in your week to week or month to month budget. But as we've seen over the last month or so, the economy is growing. Unemployment is getting back down to where they were before the pandemic.
And wages are going up about 6%. So the real loss of purchasing power is close to 1% rather than the 7% inflation number that everybody talks about. So wages have gone up. The economy is strong. Employment strong. And I think this temporary increase in inflation will, as the Fed used to say, prove transitory. And I think people will find that their purchasing power will get stronger as the year goes on.
Okay.
So as you see, folks, the effective inflation rate to people based on the increase in the economy is about 1%. And, a lot of that we all know can be mitigated instead of buying a brand name stuff for now, while the thugs that have caused the rates to go up. And notice I only name call the people who are ripping off the average American citizen. You'll never hear me talk about the average American as being foolish, stupid, or anything. I won't do that. But those bastions, the bastions of our economy, the bastions of our politics, the ones that are doing harm to the American people, I will have no mercy in how we talk to them or how we should talk to them. Are we really talking about Republicans and racism? Sure. I'll join a majority of Republicans are racist according to multiple polls. Look, Republicans are no more racist than Democrats. I go to all the liberal stuff, to the conventions and all of that. Republicans go out of the way when I go to the Republican functions to make me feel comfortable in all white spaces. I don't need anybody to make me feel comfortable in all white spaces. I feel comfortable everywhere. You can see the concerted effort when I go to Republican events where they want to dispel the notion that they're racist. So, they try to make me feel comfortable. When I go to my progressive, my liberal organizations or whatever, I encounter a ton of racists that, both the recessive one and the real ones. And I've written about that story at my blog site. progressives are intellectually not racist. The policies that we want to pass are that of inclusivity. We promote inclusivity in the party. We also promote inclusivity in a lot of different areas. But when it comes to human nature, in my experience, and I'm all over the place, before the pandemic that is, I have not found Democrats or progressives to be any less racist or more racist than Republicans. I remember one time my wife used to say things like, people are people. And it's the truth. Some of us put on an act because, we have to be a certain way. And I think unless we confront all these issues, the reason why Democrats don't ever feel that need to fulfill their promise to the Black community, let's say, or the Latino community after they get into power, it's not because that they can't get it done. It's because they don't think them sufficiently as meritorious. They don't think them sufficiently equal to them. That's why they will change the bills to pass the debt ceiling, and I agree with that. They'll change it to increase the debt, and I agree with that. But how is voter rights for everybody less important than that? It's not. And the reason why is I want to make this clear to my progressive listeners as well, because it's only we who can change ourselves as well. If they thought the same, if they gave the same importance to people of color, knowing what the Republicans are doing right now, we would not be discussing this. These laws would be passed already. But they think of others as less meritorious, less human, less deserving, less equal. Racism is across the board. Like I said, Daniel come in here and says some racist things. But I'm not going to tag Daniel and say, oh, Daniel is so much more racist than a lot of other progressives I know out there that just aren't saying the things Daniel is willing to say out loud. I told the story. I know Daniel personally. And Daniel was a Tea Party guy, nice guy, but Tea Party. And we used to talk and have great conversation. Every time I see Daniel, give Daniel a hug. I hug everybody. I'm a Latino, Panamanian, Caribbean kind of a guy. And the last time I saw him before the pandemic, I was at the Kingwood Area Democrats, and I attempted to do what I always do. Hey, Daniel, how you doing? And by that time, Daniel was like, oh, no. Trump is in office now, and I guess, and, everybody done gone bat, crazy, and he doesn't want to hug anymore, and that's fine. I don't interrupt anybody's space. And what does Daniel come back today and say? Yes, I do remember, he says. And yes, you are dangerous, he says about me. But I have further come to believe that beyond that, you are my enemy. And my message to Daniel is as follows. I will never consider you my enemy. Because if I consider you, Daniel, my enemy, the people I know who are really pushing the misinformation, the fallacies, the lies that are destroying this country would have won, because then I would be at your throat just like you want to be at my throat. I won't give them that win. For them to win, both of us have to hate each other. For them to win, both of us have to go to war with each other. And I want everybody listening to this conversation here to understand that. That is the modus operandi of the plutocracy. They need to have Daniel picking up an AK, whatever, and using it against others, and others to do the same. They need that because they're going to profit from that and much more. I want you guys to understand this, people. Today we have the honor of speaking to folks that are actually doing some important work in our criminal justice system. Today we are honored to have Jeff Reese. Jeff Reese is a former, I like to just call him a former cop, but it's a lot more than that. We'll put it in a blog. He'll be participating in the history of racism in law enforcement with the Center for the Healing of Racism. He brought this particular subject to our attention here at Politics Done Right. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to Jeff Reese, who will kind of set the subject. Go ahead, Jeff.
Hi, I'm actually bringing someone with a little more knowledge than I have, which isn't difficult. But Randall Kallinen is a very famous civil rights attorney here in Houston. He's handled many, many cases. And it was odd that he has this one case that we intersect on, and it's with the Harris County Sheriff's Office. And when Randall told me the case, it was very heartbreaking. Is about a young man named Fred Harris. Randall, I'm going to let you take it from here about Fred. Do you want to tell us about Fred Harris and what happened?
Well, thank you for having me on the show. And the case of Fred Harris. First of all, just a little bit about myself, very shortly. I am a civil rights lawyer. That is, I file lawsuits on behalf of individuals who believe that their constitutional rights have been violated by the government and the people who work for the government. And that could be the United States government, the county government, the city government, school districts, any governments. So in my various work, I file a lot of police misconduct cases. That's where officers use excessive force on people or falsely arrest them. Those are the most common cases. And another group of cases I have is the treatment of pretrial detainees and inmates in the jails and prisons, mostly in jails, because the prisons, those cases are much more difficult because the law is less favorable regarding the prisons than it is the people in the jails. So regarding Fred Harris, let me tell you a little background on Fred Harris. Fred Harris was a special needs student at Stafford High, which is a school district just in the southern part of Harris County. And he was a special needs student there. He was very well liked, but he was severely intellectually disabled. He had an IQ of 62, which puts him in the bottom 1% of the population. And so his mom likes to say that, or says that he acted like a 13-year-old. But he graduated from high school, and he was very well liked in high school because he was a very cheery individual. He was very cheery. He liked to dance, and he graduated from the Stafford High School about a year and a half ago. And he, like all young men, when they graduate from high school, he wants to go off on his own. He doesn't always want to be around, mom in the home. So he went off, on his own on some adventures. He took off and ended up, downtown Houston area, and so he was arrested. And what he was arrested for, and I'll just tell you what the story is about what they say he did. This is what the police say he did. And this is his first arrest ever in his entire life. He was 19 years old at the time, and this happened a few months ago. He was 19 years old at the time. And they say that he had a knife. Now, he didn't stab anybody or didn't even try to stab anybody, but he had a knife and somebody was scared. So the police picked him up. Now, Fred Harris had never been arrested before in his life. And so he ended up at the Harris County Jail. And at the Harris County Jail, he went to court a couple of times, and I believe that he was granted a personal recognizance bond, but for some reason wasn't let go. Now, remember, he has an IQ of 62 in the bottom 1% of the population. So it's very difficult for him to, promote for himself, ask questions like, why am I not being let go? He might not know that he's supposed to be let go. He doesn't, he's in the bottom 1% of the population, and he was not put into any special area. Now, also, I need to point out that Fred Harris was a very thin, small individual. As a matter of fact, the records show that when he was in the Harris County Jail, he weighed 98 pounds. So not even 100 pounds. He weighed 98 pounds. And so the Harris County Jail had not put him in any special place. And of course, when you're in the bottom 1% of the population, you're not very good at socializing. So when you're put into the jail with criminals, you have to be on your toes so that you don't step on other people's toes who might injure you. But for some reason, and I know the reason, and we'll get to that, he was near a very violent individual. This person was very violent. As a matter of fact, just a few days prior to Fred getting injured, and we'll get into that really shortly, this individual...
Let me stop you for a second. We lost your picture.
No, I'm here. I'm switching chairs. Go ahead.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I interrupt you.
Okay. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Okay, so where was I? Oh yes. He was with another individual. That individual weighed 240 pounds. And why he was in the Harris County Jail is 4 days prior to Fred being injured by him, he had been convicted of multiple family violence offenses. And just one day prior to Fred being injured, this individual had attacked a guard, and so he currently had a charge pending against him. So apparently, even in the jail, this person was violent. And so then I have heard that he might even had a second case of attacking a guard. But anyway, so they were put together. And when they were put together, this extremely violent, much larger individual suddenly jumped upon Fred Harris, according to witnesses, and had what's called a shank. That's in this case, it was a spoon that was, I think, a spoon or a fork that's been sharpened into like a knife. And he was severely beaten and stabbed. And eventually he was then taken to the hospital where he was brain dead. And after 4 or 5 days, they had to pull the plug on him and donated his organs to various individuals who he lives on in those various individuals, his heart, because he was a 19-year-old. So he had, a young man's organs. So that is what happened.
Now, let me ask you this. Earlier you alluded to there is some specific reason why you think they placed him in the cell block with the violent, very heavyset person?
Well, I don't know about heavyset. He's kind of muscular, but 240. Anyway, so around the same time, employees of the Harris County Jail, including guards and so forth, filed a lawsuit. And in that lawsuit, they said that the jail, and they sued Harris County itself. In other words, they sued their employers. And what they said was, you're understaffing the jail, you are underfunding the jail, and because there's not enough guards to watch everybody, and for other reasons, and also I found out that there's also underfunding of counselors who could help people who need mental health counseling, probably like Fred Harris, and maybe even this individual who did the attack. So they had filed that lawsuit saying that it is dangerous for the employees as well as the inmates due to this massive underfunding, which has been going on for quite some time. And I had stated in the press when we announced, when we were trying to get some, awareness of this, I had said that this is probably going to happen again. And just a short time thereafter, there was a very serious criminal attacked a female sergeant in her office, was for some reason wandering around the jail and severely injured this individual as well. So that is what we have at the Harris County Jail, is a lot of underfunding. Now, I know that this Jeff's topic has to do with racism. And of course, I do believe that racism does play a role in this, and that is that the underfunding of for people of color and minorities in the jail, the underfunding of resources so that they can get some help, and also just to be safe in the jail.
Well, I don't try to fit any particular bad act into any particular frame. So, if Jeff is a very hard worker in the criminal justice system, and a part of that criminal justice system don't only have to do with racism, but also have to do with poverty and people who can't get bail. So it's large. So this may or may not be a racial issue. I don't know, and I don't know. So we don't have to try to fit anything in any particular category. We just need to fit it into the category that our criminal justice system is just about criminal in the way it treats the American citizenry, and that you are working to actually treat this as a civil rights violation. Civil rights violation can have several components. You're the lawyer that I'm pretty sure that you would note that.
Yes, but I would like to point out then some, and I know that this is not podcast is not about racism, but in general. But I would like to point out, like the ACLU, for instance, did a study in the Houston area, or there was the Texas area, that although African Americans and Caucasians smoke marijuana, for instance, at the same rates, that African Americans were stopped 3.7 times more often and arrested for marijuana than Caucasian people. So this adds to a disparate amount of individuals of color in the Harris County Jail. But you are correct. Anybody, Caucasians, Asians, Hispanics, African Americans, they all deserve to be treated, fairly. And when you're in the Harris County Jail, you have to depend upon the authorities there for every single thing you get, from brushing your teeth to your food to exercise to medical care to every last single thing. So there needs to be adequate services at the Harris County Jail in order to get this accomplished. Now, one of the things that happened almost immediately after this happened was that the Commissioner's Court and the Commissioner's Court of Harris County are the people who can, give money, and they can give money for certain reasons. So they did give money for the hiring of 100 more individuals at the Harris County Jail. However, experts say that 100 in the size of jail that Houston is, which is about the third or fourth largest jail in the United States, that 100 is not enough. They needed more, like about 500. Now, some people argue that they don't want to put more money into jails because if you build it, they will come, and that means if you put more money into the jails, then you'll have more inmates. And I do know something about that because about 15 years ago, I was a part of defeating a bond, a bond election. That's where a bond election is, where the county is trying to raise money for a certain project, and they were going to have an additional jail. But it was one of the very few times that any bond election that Harris County had, it was defeated. And that I had put an article in the Houston Chronicle and spoke out against it, as did other people. So, but as far as taking care of the people who are there now, you do need to have the people, and that includes mental health care. And a lot of people say that the mental health care should be in the free world so that people don't end up in the Harris County Jail. So there should be more mental health care provided by Harris County, the city of Houston, the state of Texas. The state of Texas, of course, has one of the lowest per capita dollar expenditures for mental health in the United States. And we need to, concentrate on mental health care for the populace so that we don't end up people don't end up in the Harris County Jail.
Like people like to make these issues complicated. They're not really complicated. Right now, I'm sure that the bond issue, where a lot of people who've been released on bond have been getting in trouble. Of course, if you look at it in the aggregate, I don't think it's a larger problem as the media would like you to make it believe, given the size of Harris County. But it's one of those political issues that create the problem. You just made a very important statement when you said, if you build it, they would come, which is true. I mean, the prison industrial complex is pathetic. The truth is, if we took care of a lot of social issues, a lot of those folks who end up in prison or in jail wouldn't be there. Jeff, would you like to add anything to the conversation?
Well, yeah, I'm listening. I always enjoy listening to you guys. But Randall and I came across each other as me being a former employee of the Harris County Sheriff's Office. Randall might not want to admit it, but it was a while ago. And as a sergeant, I made the bad mistake of testifying for an inmate against the department itself. And things didn't go well with me, and that's okay. But I met Randall, and I've met you. I met some really wonderful people, and I've since retired. But one thing, whether it's a racial makeup, it's a fairness makeup, and the whole thing. I think we're all on the same page. We shouldn't have to imprison people. Randall was talking about an overall bond, a different kind of bond issue than the PR bonds that have been giving these violent criminals who are being let out to murder and kill again, where somebody like Fred Harris, who needed it, wasn't given it. So that there's an injustice still that's behind the scenes that we need to deal with. And the injustice of who we put in jail and who we let go free, that's another issue. But we all know one thing: money walks, and everything else. Money talks, everything else walks. I think that's the way it goes. But
right.
Either way, it's a class system that the rich get rich and the poor get poor.
Well, what I hope, Jeff, is that with doing programs in this series that you've been putting together in our criminal justice system in Harris County, but really that covers not only Harris County but the entire country, because Harris County has, as you know, is considered a bellwether of this United States of America. So what happens in Harris County happens everywhere else, given our makeup, given how we do. So having programs that tackles these issues are very, very important. And Randall, I'm happy that you are here doing this sort of work. Before we close, I want to ask you something, and this is a little bit off subject and going on to the bail bonds that we kind of touched on, because a lot of commenters in my programs from Houston, not the ones nationally, but mostly from Houston, have been talking about this issue about those who get out on bail and commit other crimes. And Jeff just pointed out guys like Fred Harris was not able to get bond, and he likely would have gotten out of jail and be, not create a problem. What is it that we as a citizenry do not know that we should know to make the changes so that the right people get bond and the wrong people don't?
Well, thank you so much, because you hit it exactly what I was going to say and talking about is, of course, you just don't let everybody out of jail, or you don't keep everybody in the jail. The major bond reform came in Harris County. There was a lawsuit, and they determined that for the misdemeanors, not for the felonies, that basically people should get out on PR bond. It's basically letting just about everybody out on PR bond, except for, some certain misdemeanors like violent misdemeanors. But anyway, most misdemeanors you can get out. Now, the question becomes, what about the felonies? And what needs to happen is just there has to be better decisions by the judges to look at, what the crime is and see whether or not this individual should be let out. So I think it's better individual decisions, not just wholesale, let everybody out or keep everybody in. So that's what we need, because
Randall, you're here in Houston. You've seen the headlines over the last few months. Are these bad judges just making mistakes, or are they following the law?
Well, the judges have discretion, because the bonding doesn't say a judge must set this bond or no bond. The judge has to weigh several factors, one of which is, will the individual return to the court? But one of the other major factors is this person a danger to the community?
Right.
And so it's that factor. And the judge could give them what's called a no bond, so it doesn't matter how much money they come up with, or they could give them a high bond. However, I'm always wondering, and this is what the judges were wondering in the bond reform cases, is why should money be the factor? But a judge could no bond like a person who's already, been out on bond and, did another murder or did another violent crime. That person, probably should be no bonded while they're awaiting trial. So I think that, but sometimes I believe that judges react to public opinion. So in the past, it was let everybody out, but now the public opinion has swayed and saying, keep these violent people in. So I believe that, the judges aren't perfect people. I mean, they're judges. Right. They're like you and me, doing their best. So, but if they can, just concentrate on the individual case, and sometimes there will be mistakes, but we shouldn't go overboard one way or the other. And I think this bond reform is a good thing, but of course you shouldn't go too far with it.
Randall, give me a quick closer.
I just want to say that all the people in the jails, all the inmates and the prisoners, most of them are, at heart, I believe to be good people. Some of them are not, but most of them are. And a lot of them are, got addicted to drugs or alcohol, and they committed some crimes. And so they end up in the jail or so forth, or so poor they can't get out, where a rich person could get out. So we have to remember, these are people, and the way we treat the people in the prisons and the jails should be just like, our brothers and sisters. We should give them compassion, and, hopefully that they will be reformed and not be injured there in the jail.
If we really believe in people, we should believe in reform. There are people that may be unreformable, and those we should be able to get out of. But if we really want a better society, we shouldn't be trying to be too punitive. But first, Jeff, thank you for for creating this series where we're trying to mitigate the criminal justice system. Why don't you give me a quick 30-second closer or so?
Then I'll go to Alexander Solzhenitsyn. And this is what he said after spending many years in the Gulag over in the Soviet Union. He said this, he said, we'd like to believe that there were just evil people committing evil deeds, and all we have to do is kill them or separate themselves from us and everything will be fine. He says, but that's not reality. That's not humanity. He says, every person is composed of good and evil in his own heart, and no one wants to cut a piece of.
You can get any one of my books as a gift for becoming a member of KPFT. Go to kpft.org, click that donate button, select Politics Done Right as the show you're supporting, and go into the gift area and select As I See It, Class Warfare, the only resort to right-wing doom. Or you can also get It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors. Or go to How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It. If you get one book, it gives you one particular membership price. 2 books, you get a discount, and 3 books, you get an even better discount. So please consider becoming a member of KPFT, and in the process, you get the gifts of the books. You can get Politics Done Right Mondays through Fridays on Facebook Live at facebook.com/politicsdoneright, on YouTube Live at politicsdoneright.com/YouTube. Please do not forget to follow me on Twitter for updates. My handle is at Egberto Willies, at EGBERTO WILLIES. That's it, folks. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, and you know how I end this baby. I am what? Out. Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance